said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, you know, as a real estate developer, you know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But you know, I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
True. And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, you know, they were low and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
Even after his 51st state comments literally helped Mark Carney win the election in Canada last month, still Donald Trump is pushing this delusional annexation fantasy. Despite the fact that it blew up in his face spectacularly and handed the Liberals an upset victory that political analysts are now calling one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, Donald Trump just cannot help himself. Even after Carney tells him definitively that Canada is not for sale, what does Trump say? Never say never. If you are wondering about the mentality that got Trump credibly accused by 24 women of sexual assault or harassment, it is his inability to understand that no means no. And from a political perspective, this is literally the issue that tanked conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's chances in the Canadian election. Polling showed that after Trump started his whole 51st state shtick, Canadian national pride surged and the Liberals gained 15 points practically overnight. This was the pivotal issue in the Canadian election, Donald Trump opening his mouth and reminding Canadians why they should vote against anyone who might be friendly to his administration. And look, I don't need to tell you that annexing Canada is insane. This is a sovereign nation of 40 million people with its own constitution and history and identity, but beyond the absurdity, it is the absolute inability to learn from political mistakes that's so stunning here. Trump's comments were possibly the single biggest factor in Carney's victory, and instead of just dropping it, he is right now doubling down. And let's not forget, this comes literally hours after Trump posted on Truth Social claiming that America doesn't need anything from Canada. His exact words were, "We don't need their cars, we don't need their energy, we don't need their lumber, we don't need anything they have other than their friendship, which hopefully we will always maintain." And that's a point that he reiterated here.
During the campaign, Prime Minister Carney talked about the American vitriol. How did you react if Canada decided not to shop in the American store as much as before and decided to partner with other countries?
Well, we don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with us. We're at like 4%. And usually those things don't last very long. You know, we have great things, great product. The kind of product we sell, nobody else can sell, including military. Look, we make the best military equipment in the world, and Canada buys our military equipment, which we appreciate. But we make the best military equipment in the world by far, the missiles, the submarines. everything. Everything we have is really top notch.
We don't do much business with Canada, which is an outright lie. Canada is the top export destination for 36 American states. Americans get 60% of their crude oil imports from Canada and 85% of their electricity imports. We're talking about $3.6 billion in goods and services crossing the border every single day. But hey, who needs facts when you can just traffic in a reality of your own making, right? And keep in mind, all of this is predicated on some bizarre, misguided premise that a trade deficit is a bad thing. Canada exports more to the US than it imports from the US, which simply means that they have more of what we need. And it makes sense. We're a bigger economy, we consume more, we've got nearly 10 times the amount of citizens than Canada does. None of that is bad. It just means that we need what they're selling, and much of what they're selling is less expensive, meaning Americans pay less money. It is a win-win for everybody. But Trump has decided that anybody who does business with the US is somehow ripping the US off, which is rich coming from a guy who is famous for refusing to pay his contractors. And so now, because Americans want to buy what Canada is selling, God forbid, Canada is being punished by Donald Trump. Does it make sense? No. But is it going to help us pay less for goods? Also, no. But in his addled brain, Trump has decided that trading with Canada for the goods that we need is somehow us subsidizing them.
And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically. I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them ourselves. I mean, I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, I mean, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number. And it's hard for the American taxpayer to say, gee whiz, we love doing that.
To be clear, trading with Canada, even if there is a deficit, is not us subsidizing their country. It is us buying what we need, paying for it, and satisfying the demand from American consumers. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You would think that someone who brands himself an economic genius would understand that, but then again, you would think an economic genius wouldn't take a record high economy, record high stock market, and record low unemployment and turn it into a recession fewer than 100 days into office, but here we are. So, to recap here, Donald Trump helped elect a liberal government in Canada by pushing his 51st state fantasy. That liberal government campaigned explicitly on standing up to Donald Trump. And now, face to face with the leader who won by opposing him, Trump decides the smart move here is to keep pushing the very thing that blew up in his face. It would be funny if it weren't so damaging to America's international standing and economic interests. But this is exactly what happens when you elect somebody who cares more about his ego than actual strategic thinking. If you can't admit when something was a mistake, you are doomed to keep repeating it. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.